Lonesome Lands podcast, Lonesome Report. We're back in our home bases, back from Oklahoma. We're going to talk about Screwworm and Sid Miller and what the heck he's talking about. We're going to talk about our trip to Oklahoma, the dairy buyout, which we kind of scraped the surface on when we were down there doing that podcast. This climate madness and how the agriculture people want to keep that going, and while the rest of the world is kind of pulling back. Tri-State Livestock did an article about we're going to get back into that methane curriculum, school curriculum, and maybe we'll talk about the bureaucrats at USDA. What do you think, Shad? Should we talk about that?
I'm here to follow your lead, brother.
This episode brought to you by Independent Cattlemen of Missouri, one of our favorite groups. These state independent associations are helping us go, and those guys down there work hard. They're organized. They're really a great state group to promote independent cattle production. Not just in the state of Missouri, but in the entire country. They do things, they get to their capital, they talk to their representatives, they really get out there and get after it. So if you want to, if you're in Missouri and you want to be part of that group, go to independentcattlemenofmissouri.org and you'll find all their information there. If you're somewhere in the U.S., go to that website and you just want to promote and help these small organizations or state-run organizations kind of get their message out, which is kind of lines up with our message. I know they work really hard on MCool. That's kind of their big topic down there. Freddie Keaton, Micah Bristow, I believe is a board member. I just found out too, and he's with the Circle 5 Cattlemen. So big friends of our program, and they are promoting, or they are this episode sponsoring this episode. So
fantastic group. Fantastic group.
independentcattlemenofmissouri.org.
There's a settled gentleman right there with a backbone. They went down to the Capitol.
They do work hard.
They do. They went down to the Capitol. They got some stuff done. They stood their ground, and anybody who knows anything knows that the Missouri cattlemen have control of the Capitol in Missouri. So they've done a great job, and I give kudos to those gentlemen. I'm a member of the Missouri Independent Cattlemen.
There you go. And they had you there to speak too, didn't they? Or did you not go?
No,
was it a Zoom thing? You were there.
Nope,
all right. I'm planning on being there this year, September.
I'll hold you to it.
Yeah, I've kind of held myself to it. Anyway.
All right. Good job.
Screwworm rumors flying last week.
Oh, my lanterns.
Which caused the cattle market the futures market to kind of crash there on Friday. Shad is here with your latest.
Well, the latest is Texas Department of Agriculture's own Sid Miller decided that he would speak up on this New World screwworm because they found a new fresh case in an 8-day-old calf south of the border in the state of Tamaulipas, if you can say that right. Of course, they've had a lot of other detections of the New World screwworm. That's nothing new. I think in Mexico, over the last year, maybe 6,000 cases, most of them towards the south. But when you get a case up here close to the border, it causes a little ruckus, and we've had a lot of cases. I don't know why this particular case brought Sid Miller out to say many, many things like, you better get ready. It's here. It's coming. It's here. And of course, that was taken abroad across the United States. The markets reacted to it in a highly negative way, which, if you'll remember earlier in the week, USDA came out with a revised corn report that sent the corn market diving and the cattle up over $6. Well, it was just hold on to your horses. This market is crazy. Let Sid Miller enter the kingdom, and the market went down over $8, was off over $8. And fats were off over three to four on Friday. So Sid's comments had a resounding effect. Of course, a lot of people were not happy with that. And listen, we know USDA is working on mitigation programs. I think Texas Department of Agriculture is working on mitigation programs. All of this is not fast enough. We know that. We know they're putting out 100 million a week down there along the border. We need a minimum of 500 million a week. Uh, so
Flies. If you're not
yeah,
familiar, he's
yeah,
talking about flies.
sterile new world screwworm flies, and so the really the story just took off and the markets reacted. But there was some rumors that it wasn't just a new world screwworm that caused the market reaction. They said there was some rumors of more plant closures in the north. I have yet to find anything on those rumors. Those were just rumors that came through the cattle sector, with lots of phone calls and texts. I have not heard anything about a plant closure. So really, or not secretary, but the Department of Ag, Sid Miller here in Texas, kind of let it get a little out of hand. He,
What? Couple questions
yes, sir.
for my Texas friends.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think was behind that? Like, why would he all of a sudden come out and be like, check your pets, check your, check everything
Well,
for
I don't think there were.
screwworm because it's here. That's pretty much what he said. He goes,
No,
go
that's
ahead and check
exactly what he
everything for a
said.
screwworm because it's
Mhm.
here.
Yeah, we know that's exactly what he said. I think that Sid Miller is just a gentleman that often talks too quickly
Well,
and
that
has
that was
what Jim
he knew
Mundorf
what he
would.
was saying there. When
I
he
don't
says
know.
check your pets because it's here, he's saying it's here.
I can't tell you
And
what's
why would
behind
he
that.
say it's here when the USDA and the USDA came out with a statement after that, correct?
They
On
did.
Friday or
That's
Saturday,
right. That's correct.
and they said there is no
And there
cases of
isn't. I mean,
screwworm
there
in
is
the
no
U.S.
reporting of the New World screwworm on this side of the border. I think Sid Miller is under a little pressure. He's got a guy or two running against him for the head of the agriculture in Texas. And so he's probably under a little pressure. I don't know where that came from, and I'm not going to speculate where it came from, but I do know this. He spoke too quickly. It affected the markets. And so we had this rollout. Now we'll see what happens tomorrow when it opens up. Today was Martin Luther King Day. The markets were closed, but certainly was not good. And he did take some heat from a lot of people on that. We have to remember that there are not only cattle producers, ranchers, and farmers along the border, but there are wildlife breeders, deer breeders. The hunting industry in Texas is as big as beef cattle ranching down there along the border, if not more. So they have a whole lot at stake. And so for anybody to come out and say it's here is a very dangerous situation. There's a lot of things going along with this and going into this whole mitigation project from both sides. But I will tell you this: I think that USDA and the Texas Department of Agriculture and the state of Mexico, or the state of or whatever state is, that's the state of what is it, Laredo? I don't know. But the country of Mexico all need to come together and get their talking points and their plan united, because everybody seems to be suffering from this. And whether we've got a border open or not, when you have a rumor like that get started and it flies, it affects our markets. Now, we would like for that fly to be back to the Darien Gap before they open this border. But we heard Rollins say on our Lonesome report, it's not a matter of if, but when it's going to open. Well, with these new cases, I don't think that's going to be anytime soon. If it is, shame on me for even saying that, because I don't know. But I don't think Sid Miller is wrong in saying that we need to be very vigilant. We need to be looking and checking all of these animals that we own. Of course, there's wildlife that we can't get to and check, but there's nothing wrong with being vigilant. And he did say that. So let's be vigilant and watch that, because we have had a very warm winter. And according to experts, once that larvae drops off onto the ground. They plant their little seeds into the ground, and then in about 5 days, you have a fly. Well, we haven't had enough cold weather. It sounds like we're going to get the cold weather this weekend, but we haven't had enough cold weather to really slow that down hard. So it is an issue that we need to be watching. I don't think we need to be saying it is here. It is here, by golly. But we do.
You sounded just
We
like him.
did I?
That was a good impression.
Well, thank you. I think we need to be very vigilant and careful, but I do implore the country of Mexico, the Texas Department of Agriculture, the local departments of agriculture, Texas A&M University, and Secretary Brooke Rollins to get that thing flowing quicker. We are going to pay for it anyway. What have we sent down there? There's no telling how many hundreds of millions in help we've sent, but we've sent a lot of cash down there too. We got to do it. It's on us. I mean, Mexico has proven that they are going to drop the ball. They are not going to reclaim their sovereignty against all that is going against them. We've got to do it. Let's get it done, because if we continue to put pressure on these cattle numbers, and if there were to be a massive outbreak, we just don't have the help to mitigate that, especially in terms of wildlife. And those hunting guys down there, those are massive, massive, massive additions to communities, rural communities down there. And so we need to help them in every way that we can, as well as them helping us. So remember,
Hey,
be vigilant.
be vigilant. Okay. So you just roll, and I'll throw something out there and you just roll with it. But you
All
talk
right.
about rumors, right? And how these rumors hit the market and everything goes sideways.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about the algorithm issue that it seems like nobody's talking about, but it just seems like, I mean, if you go through this fall and we have these crazy cattle prices, which you get
Mm-hmm.
really high prices, like it's a really fast fall, right? You
Sure.
have that ability to crash.
Sure.
Um, but it seems like the Argentinian thing, before any facts were really out, the market
Yes.
just craters. Any sort of gets on the wind, and all of a sudden the
Mm-hmm.
market's going nuts. And a lot of, I mean, I guess these algorithms come into question, right? There's these computer algorithms that see one thing or another and they just go nuts with it, right?
Yeah, they don't really come into question. They come into play. That's what they do. And so let's just take, for example, and listen, let me tell the world right now, I am no expert on trading or algorithms or anything. I use the board a lot. This is my outside interpretation of that. But when you have these rumors, whether it's a short-term or long-term rumor, the funds, what we call the funds who are investing in these markets, they watch that. And so let's just take Friday's deal with Sid Miller, for example. He comes out and he says, it's here. Okay, one person takes that, it spreads out. The funds who are investing in these markets, their intention is to make money, whether it's going up or going down. But if they are in a long position and they see something like what Sid Miller said that could push it short, go, turn it around, then they've got their people watching and they say, all right, this is a danger to our profit. We got to pull out or go short, right? So once those funds start pulling their investments, or they turn that position around, that's when these algorithms or these computer technicals start recognizing that. And I don't know if that I assume, Jim, that is through artificial intelligence. I don't know, but it certainly starts a play, and it's like a snowball headed for hell. Once the algorithm recognizes there's exit of the investment or a change in the investment, then it's going to go that other way. And I think that is, there'll be 1,000 people tell me I'm wrong on this, and I'm hoping they do. But this is how I see it from the outside, and it is not playing to the independent ranchers game, because at the end of the day, the CME was created to mitigate loss for independent producers. Back when I was in college and we took futures and options, There was a time when we had to, if we, whatever position we had to deliver on that position a physical product. That is no longer the case. So when you don't have, if you have a buyer on one side and a seller on the other, or vice versa, that's not the case anymore. These are just paper trades. And so this algorithmic move has a greater effect on it. And we're talking massive amounts of money. When I was, I think in 1996, when I first opened my very first account in Chicago, a limit move, which a limit move is the amount that it can move, the market can move up or down in a day, was $1.50. And I can remember when they moved that to $3, uh, it was like, holy cow, what a bunch of money. And now a limit move is 9, and then expanded limits to 13. And it's just wild amounts of money. And that's why it has become kind of a controversial issue, because these independent farmers and ranchers are not able to protect. They are able to protect their investment, but they have to have access to the cash in case that goes, if you're a hedger, in case that goes against you, right? And we saw that last year where a lot of the yearling people, including myself, hedged at what we thought was a very high hedge, a very profitable hedge. And then that move went against us. It went up over $100 from my initial hedge spot or strike price. And then you have all of this, what they call a margin call. So you have to cover these margin calls. Well, pretty quick, if it's, $100 against you, that's 50,000 a contract, and it's a big deal. And that's why it's become so controversial in the use of price protection and insurance. It's an access to cash. You have to have a banker that understands that. I happen to have that. And not everybody did. I mean, I've heard of losses, margin calls upwards of $20 million on just independent producers, in that have, quite a few cattle. They have that access to cash, but it's a very, very volatile situation. And then when we move into this era that we live in, where technology is instant, reports are instant, rumors are instant, everything has an effect on the market moves. And so that has kind of gone against us too. Back before all this technology came along, you could buy, I'm cattle industry perspective, you could buy a 5-weight calf in Montana, and they would not know the price of that calf for a week in Florida, right? That's just the way it was. But now it's all instantaneous. That's why you see this cash market on fire everywhere you go across the nation. And those are the technicals we're dealing with now. And I will tell you, it is a dangerous game. I still go back to my ag economics teacher at a little community college in Wyoming, who said in 1992, if you are in business today, you will likely be in business forever. That is not the case. You can lose this stuff in 1 year right now. So dangerous, dangerous times. You have to be ready. You have to accept your risks, which most of these guys, or all of these guys, do. That's the game they're in, especially if you're a stocker operator, yearling operator, feeder. You are accepting that risk, but it has been really hard for these guys to adjust to the new plays of the game. It's just hard to adjust because it takes so much money.
Have you seen much talked about with high frequency trading? Like the quicker the computers.
No.
Michael Lewis wrote a book called Flash Boys. I just looked it up.
Eh,
I couldn't remember, and I've never read it, but it was about how the quicker the computers could sense a change in the market, and they were quicker computers. They had a quicker connection, and so they were able to kind of game the system.
Wow.
And I've heard people talk about that with the algorithm type of argument. I don't know. That's, I guess, something we should look into and get more informed on before we talk about it much. But
Yeah, certainly I've not heard of it, but I'm behind the game on most everything all the time. I'm still trying to catch up to all this new technology. These younger kids that have grown up with computers and the quickness of the internet are at an advantage. They're so smart. They've come up with computers. You have to remember, when I was in high school, we didn't have a computer. We had an electric typewriter that we learned how to type on, right? So when my first experience with a computer was my second year in college, And
What year was that?
that would have been 1993, right? I think 93 or 94 was my
You didn't have a
first.
computer in like you were never on a computer until 1993?
Not in my school. My mom had one that she did her books on, and it was all green and gray screen.
Yeah, you didn't have one of them big Apple things you could play Oregon Trail. Like I was in elementary and
I do remember playing Oregon Trail, or the kids played Oregon Trail on a little what would be known as a modern day laptop, and it was just a square computer with a little screen up at top. It was about that thick and about a foot by 10 inches, maybe. The screen was just as flat as the typewriter on it. That was in fifth grade, and then no computer. I don't remember any computers for us being on. We had to take typing. We took typing on the old brown electric typewriter, which I loved. It goes fast as you could and type nothing. And then it was my second year in college where I had to take computers.
hmm,
But these kids now, like my kid, your kid, they're starting them right away, so they're very, very computer literate. Take Jaden at RCAF, like that girl is a phenom with the computer. Like she's doing these things with the computer in two seconds that would take me 20 minutes, right? Jaden
yeah.
Moreland. I couldn't think of her last name. So they're amazing kids. They're lucky. So these kids kind of, I guess, to say what I'm trying to say is I'm on that line of old versus new. Do you want to take the time to learn it? Probably not. I'll just
Yeah.
go.
I remember the internet was like a new thing we
Mhm.
probably got on it the first time. I was maybe a freshman in high school. But I mean, back then it was,
So would have that
they
been
didn't
what
know
year?
the, I mean, it was instantaneous. Some kid found naked pictures. I mean, I remember like the first time we're in there, some kid like types something in and here comes something. And he was like booted out of the room right away. Like there was no filters and they have all this technology now
Oh,
that doesn't let you on any of these websites.
yeah.
Back
Yeah.
then it was like, hey kids, come in here and look at the what they called the internet. And we come in there and some kid types something in. I
Well, it would have
remember.
been 1995. I was working
Yeah, see,
for
that was
94, 95. I was working for the department head of agriculture at West Texas A&M. And he said, come in here. I want to show you something. And so I came into his office and he's typing on this and he says, have you ever heard of the internet? And I'm like, no, what is that? And he was actually typing or communicating with another professor from Africa. And I'm like, what? This is your, and I mean, it was instantaneous, right? And I
yeah.
was like, wow. And so that was my very first introduction to the internet. Of course, it was very young at the time and we didn't really get into it until later on. But yeah, I mean, I was behind.
And your mine's still being blown because I just shared we use a notes app on our phones that
Hmm.
we share and he can watch me type on it if I
Yeah.
type out a subject for the podcast and
And
he
then
was like, "Oh
erase
my
it.
gosh. I can see what you're typing right now."
I know. It's kind of like those old movies where, the go in Ghost where that ghost is typing on there and then it's crazy.
I've never seen that movie. Ghost?
I think it was Ghost.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know what you're
it
talking
was
about. Like
Ghost.
it's a yeah. I've never seen it though.
Yeah, it's a good
That's one of
show.
them movies. Usually you're the one who hasn't ever seen the movie.
Well,
You
it
seen
is
Margin
from,
Call yet? You're talking about Margin Call. I told you
no,
to watch that movie.
I'm going to write that down. But Ghost
Good
is
movie.
from like 1988, so that's why
Yeah.
you haven't seen it.
Well, I was alive in '88. I was a good 9
4,
years old.
were you?
Um, the dairy buyout, is that what we should do next?
Let's talk
This
about
is
it.
something, one thing that surprised me when we were in Oklahoma, we did it. So for if you didn't miss last week's, we did it in Oklahoma on Saturday, and I said we would have a podcast on Monday. We didn't end up doing that because it's a lot to do two in one week, especially with all the travel. But one of the things we kind of scratched the surface on at the end of the podcast, we talked about how there is a proposed dairy cow buyout. And I thought this would get, it's almost like nobody paid any attention to it except for us.
Hmm.
Like Jack initially put up something. Well, I don't know where he found that, but it kind of laid it out a little bit. And then I did some searching and I found the Western United Dairies, which is just a dairy organization, like a regional dairy organization. I think it's mainly like California, Idaho, Nevada dairies. So like NCBA is the cattlemen's organization. This is the dairy organization that for the Western United States, apparently. Hopefully I got that right, but that's how I understood it. And they put out this press release, which I can no longer find, but I found the tweet that had pretty much copied and pasted it. They still have the way you can go to their website, they called it "Make America More Ground Beef," and it was strengthening America's domestic beef supply. So they heard all this stuff from Trump, and they're like, "How can we, get in on this deal?" I guess, but they called it a farmer-led proposal to keep U.S. packing plants running, protect rural jobs, and deliver affordable protein to American families using existing USDA authority. And it is a crazy plan, and I can't believe more people didn't pick up on it, but apparently, I guess whatever. So it's this organization and they're kind of petitioning. I don't know if it's exactly a petition. There's a way at the bottom of the page where you can send a letter in and you can send it as a farmer story. And it's like the farmer story. Secretary Rollins, my name is, and you're supposed to put in your name. Operate a dairy farm in, and then you're supposed to put your state in. It's really a form letter that gives your farmer story. And if you want to write the economic policy focus letter, there's a form letter for that. And a rural jobs and food security, there's a form letter for that. Or a general, there's a form letter for that. And then you put your name in, number of years you're farming, the dairy name, and you submit that, and then they send that on to USDA. But the whole program, to break it down, it said it aligns with the latest national dietary guidelines, encourages affordable, high-quality protein for American families. 2 simple tracks. This is the buyout. And they say immediate cull track. This is the cull cows, what they want the government to pay for cull cows. Cull dairy cows of any age or condition, $1,600 per head, plus a $200 early delivery bonus. Total payment up to $1,800 per head, paid upon proof of slaughter. That's the first track. And so that is 60. You take your the cull cows out of your dairy herd, you sell them at the sale barn, you prove they went to slaughter, or you sell them, however, they have to be butchered. So you send your proof of slaughter in, and
third party.
Right, the USDA sends you a check on top of what you're already making on record cull cow prices.
And it has to be an approved slaughter facility or feeding facility.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, whatever.
This is sounding very sustainable, sir.
Yeah, well, it's, and so the dairy people are saying that there's an oversupply of milk and an undersupply of beef. So the thing to do is for the government to pay all the dairy farmers for the cows that they slaughter, up to $1,800 per head. But here's the other track is the feedlot beef track, which if you sell a dairy heifer over 400 pounds, shipped to approved feedlots for a minimum finishing period, you get $1,800 per head plus $200 early bonus. Total potential payment $2,000 per head. So we now have record high calf prices in the U.S., and the dairy people want to get $2,000 per head on top of that, paid to them by the U.S. taxpayer.
Well, and that is on top of what they sell these cows for in the sale barn, right? So they would be getting their sale price in the sale barn. And
do dairy cows usually hit the sale barn? Or is
they do here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They do here. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was thinking, dairies have gotten so big and so corporate. Like this just seems like a giant corporate USDA scam to me.
So let me slip in here. My wife is a CPA in a dairy community, and she has been on the very, she's been there almost 30 years. So she has seen this move from, like I said last time, 141 dairies in this community down to 30 some, right? But she is saying that there is this global onslaught of milk, and milk is cheap, 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 right? So they're wanting to mitigate that. They're talking about this ground beef being a problem, too high in the stores. The administration's wanting to mitigate that. So they've kind of married these two issues to create a program, right? That will help those farmers and help the consumers. How does that look for the beef guy? I don't know what that's going to bring. And it's just a
Cool.
proposal right now, right? But we do have to remember that the beef on dairy plays a role in this. And I just drove by a little dairy outside of this little town not 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago, and there was a cow that had just calved there along the road, and she had a total Black Angus calf on her, right? So this is a structure that we've
They
got to
haven't pulled it off
consider.
yet?
No, it was just born.
Oh,
I mean,
just born.
he was just standing up, and I'm like, okay, there's beef on dairy right there, and we know that those beef on dairy calves are bringing 1,600, 15, 1,600 as soon as they hit the ground on that to go into that program. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. I don't know where the USDA is at in this. I don't know if this is a Western United Dairies initiative. But I'm going to say they're somewhere in the middle of being interwoven, right? And so we have to remember it's just a proposal, and I think it's a proposal that, as a member of Western United Dairies or a dairy farmer, you get to make a decision whether that is a good idea or not. Now, I have heard through the grapevine that the milk processors are not for this. And why wouldn't they be? I mean, why would they be, right? I mean, they're buying milk cheap, cheap, cheap and creating all kinds of products out of that and making lots of money, right? So there's that in there as well. So I think we just watch this go down the road, see what happens. See, really, I'd like to know really where the foundation of its origination comes from, and go from there, Jim.
Yeah, and so I mean, you say we don't know. This happened in 1986, and that's why I think they
Mhm.
keep saying USDA already has the authority to do this, is because they've already done it.
Yeah.
Very similar. Even they said this would cost around $2 billion. I think back then they spent like 1.8 to 1.9 billion dollars paying off uh, for coal cows from the dairy industry. And what
Mhm.
ended up, the dairy guys loved it, of course, and the cattle industry, back then we had a National Cattlemen's Association. They had not merged, so it wasn't the Cattlemen's Beef Association. But the National Cattlemen's Association sued the USDA, I think, for $250 million because of market losses. Because that's what it did to the market. We just got done talking about what these little rumors do to the
Mhm.
market. Can you imagine? It says is designed to divert 800,000 to a million additional dairy origin cattle in spring of 2026, adding 900 million to 1.1 billion pounds of lean trim to the ground beef market. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't there this needs to be looked into so many different ways before it would ever happen. They're saying spring of 2026. It's like a couple months away. But yeah, the whole thing just seems insane to me. And the fact that more people aren't talking about it also seems weird.
Well, I don't think they're talking about it because it's not official, right? I mean, it's just a proposal.
Right,
It
but even
has,
a proposal, it's officially proposed from an official organization.
yes,
That's when it
yes.
should be
But
talked
have you
about.
seen it in the mainstream media at all?
No, I don't think so.
No, you haven't. I mean, you have not seen that at
Not
all. And
even,
that's,
yeah, I don't
I
know.
mean, it's us that's talking about it. I mean, I've been hearing rumors of it for quite a while. But until it really becomes official by USDA, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's even going to happen. I guess those Western United Dairy members have to vote on it. Would that be that would be a critical component to this
You know,
where,
they don't have to vote on it. They're supposed to, I mean, they're
well, they're going
proposing it.
to approve it the way I understood, right? Their
I
their
think it's
goal was to be the
approved. They
ones
wouldn't be
that,
asking they wouldn't be asking their members to send these letters to USDA if it hadn't been approved by the association.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I think that they have the communication of approval with the USDA. Like, I mean,
No, I don't know
I
about
don't know
that.
either.
I
I don't.
think one thing I think has to be said, and
Uh-huh.
this is where we get into this a lot of different issues, but the director or the head of the NRCS worked for Western United Dairies, Aubrey Betancourt. Um, I mean, that's not, we love, uh,
But is she connected to it? That's the question. I mean,
yeah,
is
well,
in our
that's the problem you get when you hire people, these industry inside people, right? Like, we have Justin Ransom who used to work at Tyson Foods, and all of a sudden he's the head of the FSIS, and USDA is supposed to be investigating these meat packer corruption and concentration with Tyson Foods. That's
oh,
the problem.
dang. Well, okay, but why would I guess my question to you is why would NRCS be involved, the Resource Conservation Service be involved with a Western United Dairy initiative?
I'm
Wouldn't
not
that
saying
go
they
through another
are. I'm not
program?
saying there is any involvement at all. I just think it needs to be said that when you have a head person at USDA that came directly from that organization, it just
Well, we
should be
need to reach
mentioned.
out to him. I need to reach out to him and say, okay, what's the deal on all of this? Where is this what agency in USDA is this coming from, going to, all of that stuff? Because it is a big deal, right? Especially with, meat supplies and President Trump wanting to reduce the cost of ground beef and all that stuff. I mean, these are things that we do need to talk about that are real and not algorithmic in nature, right?
Yeah.
These are actual tangible programs that would affect not only the dairy side, obviously in a positive way, but affect the meat side or the beef side, the cattle side, perhaps in a negative way. And then you have, USDA's revision of their corn report that just sent everything on that side reeling. I mean, we are in complex times, if you ask me, and it's hard to understand it all.
And what adds to complexity is the government shelling out money, right? The reason all this stuff's going on in Minnesota, like you can't have all of this fraud if you don't have people at the government writing out major checks, whether it's fraudulent or not. That's
Yeah.
where you end up with all of this. And when
Yeah.
you get into, climate smart commodity, all of these government programs,
Mm-hmm.
they're just ripe for the picking. If you look at Minnesota, they didn't care who they're writing checks to. They just
No.
wrote them out. And that goes into the article that came out this week that you were just
Mhm.
reading, right? Some
Yeah.
guy
In
knew that
AgWeb.
USDA was ripe for the picking, and he
Yep.
defrauded them out of $200 million.
$200 million. $200 million in a series of um, USDA loan scams, not just one, but three. And then his wife got involved and he went to prison. Then she went to prison. 52 years is what he got. But he was frauding the USDA out of loan program money from his prison cell. Him and his wife were colluding. And then they had struck all of these deals there was two other co-conspirators in this down along the way, but it's a years long investigation and story that came out on AgWeb today. It was a very complex, very hard to understand story, but this guy was a genius. He was from India,
A
and he was a
genius crook. Like,
he
yeah.
was a genius to do what he did in the tune of $210 million frauded from the USDA, not only under the Biden administration, but the Obama and the Trump administration previous. And so there's all of this stuff just happening with no oversight. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, although it's not a corrupt deal. But that was corrupt. And that's part of the reason why these bureaucratic holdovers are so dangerous. I mean, they were giving him money by the millions, 20, 30, 40, $50 million at a time.
And they weren't checking up on anything.
They weren't checking up on him.
And that's that's the thing about all of like
Yes.
the major news story consistently is this fraud.
Yes.
Of the government, our most watched thing ever was the Doge thing
Yes.
where we checked on. And that's where it all goes to. It's like when the government starts writing checks, you have people that are gonna defraud the government. I mean, that's the
Yes.
thing. And it goes into this dairy buyout. They're like, okay, government, let's start writing checks. Well, how many, you don't think there's gonna be falsified records on that when you can get 2,000 bucks a head? Um,
We'll go
per
back to just go back to the COVID days. I mean, I had two neighbors in Colorado that I don't know if they applied for the PPP stuff or whatever, all of that. Well, one of my neighbors never even applied for it, but then started getting notices that they needed to start paying back. And they're like, we didn't apply for any money. And these people had stolen their identities and applied through their identities and got all this PPP money. And they had to pay for lawyers to get through all that. I mean, the fraud is just so scandalous. And you know why it is? Is because there's too much money being doled out,
right.
right? And
That's what
there's too many people, and a lot of these people around the country have learned how to get through those little loopholes
right.
and start doing that, and it's a bad deal.
Yeah. And it's like if uh, you know, I don't know. I mean, yeah, and then the USDA, they're pushing the $700 million. We're gonna regenerative farming thing, which
Mhm.
all sounds great, but it's, 750 million that you don't think people are gonna try to defraud that. It's anything they do. People are gonna be
Mhm.
out there, crooks are gonna be out there trying to get at it.
One of the issues on that program though that might mitigate it is that phrase where they call it a whole farm program. that might
Yeah.
that might be a mitigation point there on the whole
Well,
farm
there's
program.
supposed to be mitigation points everywhere that tend to get
It's a good point.
worked around. I'm sure that guy that screwed him out of $200 million, you talking about him being genius. That's his genius. Like if he'd have put his mind to actual productivity, he would have been probably just as successful. But he put
Well,
his
at
mind
the
to
end of
how do I
that,
work around all these corners and
no,
trick
and
all
he
these
did.
people?
I mean, at the end of that story, he's buying a $30 million diamond in
Yeah.
Dubai, and he's got $500,000 in cash hidden somewhere, and all of this stuff. Well, the federal government, the USDA, only got 100 million of the $210 million back. Where is the $110 million? You know,
Yeah.
this is a crazy life we're living in, bro.
Right. And you go into so what do you want to talk about
Well,
next?
I do want to talk about, I think one of the biggest pieces of news that we have not talked about kind of relates to the climate stuff. And this is where I'm getting a little confused between USDA and the America First policy is that President Trump pulled us out of 66 different climate programs through the United Nations. These were treaties, programs,
Woohoo.
contracts, and President Trump pulled us out of those about 10 days ago, which I think is the biggest win in American history for freedom and liberty because we know that they are all founded at the World Economic Forum and the United Nations. He pulls us out of them. Says no more of this climate nonsense. Now, one further step that he needs to do is pull us out of the United Nations and kick their asses out of the United States. That's what they need to do. He is just one step from exiting the United Nations, which is good. But to pull out of these climate programs at the UN and the World Economic Forum is fantastic. We know he got us out of the Paris Agreement, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it ceases a lot of these contracts. But the biggest one for me is it delineates the 30 by 30 Executive Order 14008 or the America the Beautiful. It effectively ends that whole mess of corruption right there. And I'm very happy about that. So that's where I tend to get a little confused with the pushing of these climate smart programs still at USDA. And then, you probably heard last week that I can't remember what ENGO it was that sued the USDA and forced USDA to put the climate programs back onto the internet, back onto their websites, which President Trump and Secretary Rollins washed those. Were supposed to have washed or promised to wash those websites from all the climate jargon and climate nonsense. I can't remember what
I'll
ENGO it was.
tell you what it is. I have the
All right.
article up here.
All right.
Which, to be fair, the article is on earthjustice.org,
Oh
which
yeah, there you
means
go.
you can't believe a single word that
Not
they
a
say.
thing it says.
But we'll go over it anyway. The headline is USDA reverses course, commits to restore purged climate web pages in response to farmers' lawsuit. And so earthjustice.org is like a bunch of lawyers for
Hmm.
these environmental wackos.
Hmm.
But the first word of the article is victory, right? They have to show victory, like they're getting something accomplished. And
Hmm.
interesting that it comes out at the same time when Trump, yeah, got us out of all those stupid climate agreements. But so they say it's the farmers, like in that farmers lawsuit, but the farming group is the Northeast Organic Farming Association of New York.
So we kind of know where they lean.
Right, but that was one group. The other groups were the Natural Resource Defense Council and the Environmental Working Group. So one of the groups was a Organic Farming Association, which who knows what, I mean, there is a lot of farms in New York, but heck, this could be rooftop
Well, the
tomato
environmental working group
patches
is nowhere
in
near.
Manhattan for all I know.
Well, that's a good point.
Anyway, but it says resources purged from USDA website include information on climate smart farming, accessing federal loans, forest conservation, rural clean energy projects. I don't know. The U.S. Forest Service Climate Risk Viewer, a one-stop shop for climate-related geospatial data with over 140 data layers. All the BS, all the climate BS they put in. But one thing I found interesting when they're coming out and putting that crap out, Axios, which is just a uh, kind of online news organization, the world's great climate collapse. This is not a right wing organization at all, but they talk about how um, it's just an article talking about how the whole world is really kind of pulling back on this climate,
Hysteria.
alarmism. And they get into Bill Gates and how he came out and said,
Yeah.
pretty much like, yeah, we over exaggerated the what was actually, the actual dadgummit, Shad. What
Well,
am I trying to say?
that was the whole point of the whole deal is they knew it was just an alarm, right? An alarm or a crisis that they created to get control of the people, and they almost did it, Jim. I mean, they globally you see a pullback, but regionally around the globe you see a double down, and in the United States because of what you have uncovered about the methane and the carbon neutrality and all of these programs that these ag organizations are conspirating to be, colluding to be a part of. The whole premise under that is that it's all about the money, right? They need the money. They need the money. They need the money, and that's an opportunity for them to grab the money. But the truth is we know it's all a lie. And when people said, you know, I mean, let's go back to the '70s when '70s, early '80s. Acid rain is coming. Acid rain is killing the planet. Acid rain. That's all I heard about when I was a
Well,
kid was acid rain.
they would said the coming ice age on like Time
Yeah,
magazine in the late
I remember
70s, I
that.
think.
And nothing ever happened, right? The sea is at the same level, the ice cap is greater. I mean, it was all just and people, I think these leftists and these scientists and these people who want to rule the world actually think people are so stupid that they will buy into all of this. And people after a while are looking around and they're saying, "Well, I thought California was going to be in the ocean by the year 2000. It's still
Yeah.
here. It's all lies." So I
But I
think
mean,
that's it.
that's the trouble with the amount of information available. Like back in the 70s, you couldn't just go home and type in something on your computer and find out what
Sure.
you can't find the United Nations news article from 1989 where they said, right, the world would be unrecognizable.
Hmm.
And now you can, and it's really just kind of bringing out the truth. But this article talks about they have a chart that says global climate and clean tech VC investments by region, 2006 to 2026, which would be venture capital investments, meaning like a small bit like Beyond Meat. Remember when they went
Hmm.
public and they were like the highest priced IPO ever or whatever, the biggest gain on their first day.
Mhm.
And now they're pretty much broke. They
Yeah.
refuse to declare bankruptcy, but they're
Right.
pretty much worthless.
Right.
Um, this really started ramping up in like 2000. It's an interesting graph because like 2016 it starts to go up, which that was Trump's inauguration, and that's kind of when
Mhm.
the Beyond Meat, Fake Meat investments started happening. But then in 2021 is when it like doubled. And it looks like it goes from, I don't know, 30 billion up to 70 billion. And that was the height of it. And then it's consistently come down. And now we're almost back to like the 2020 level. Around, I don't know. They don't have, it's not a real clear chart, but I would
Remember
say
that picture they
40
posted?
billion.
Remember that picture they posted in the grocery stores where all the shelves, the meat shelves were empty, but the Impossible Meat
Yeah.
shelf was
Right.
full, right? And
Yeah.
that's just a picture of what the truth is, right?
Right. It
Right.
was all based on BS. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And now, as just reality is coming to
It's the fruit, Jim. I always
right.
call it the fruit.
Yeah. But you go back to like that day, I think that when I posted about the dairy buyout thing on the same day, I think we were in, I can't remember what it was because they took it off the website, but Drovers Magazine posted an article about the Beef Improvement Federation and how they're talking about the methane market
Hmm.
and reduction in methane and all that.
Hmm.
Beef Improvement Federation is a group of the breed associations. So, like the Angus Association, which took $4 million, but also Herefords and Charlet, and they're all
Yeah.
part of this Beef Improvement Federation. And they bring in all the methane people to talk at their convention or whatever. And Drovers Magazine had that up, and Jack had reposted it, I reposted it, and now it's gone. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, they took it down. It's not on our posts anymore anyway.
Wow.
So yeah, but that just goes to show like the world is kind of realizing this is all a bunch of BS. But these cattle guys who've invested in these methane digesters
Yeah,
and
they got to keep it going,
they've
man.
bought into the genetics, the low emission genetics, all that kind of stuff, feed additives, BS. If this goes away, they lose all that time and money that they've spent building it up, right? And so they're the ones, kind of holding on for dear life to
Yeah.
these lies, really.
Yeah.
And you talk about the dairy industry, they were the number one. These massive dairies all have they are set up with methane digesters where the cattle industry was just starting to get set up. But one thing that's interesting is they figured that dairy methane is more, I don't know if the dairy cattle, if their methane is, they produce more methane, I believe. And so the natural gas, what they call RNG, renewable natural gas that comes from
Hmm.
dairies is actually
Hmm.
worth more on the carbon market than the natural gas that comes from like a traditional feedlot. What do you think of that?
I don't know what to think of it. I'm
It's
like,
a bunch
really?
of BS. It's just crazy. But the dairy industry, straight up, National Farmers Association or NFA, what was that?
Nash
What?
NFA,
No, what's the dairy farmers, the big co-op?
Dairy Farmers of America.
Yeah, Dairy Farm DFA.
Yeah,
There you go.
DFA.
Dairy Farmers of America. They had the United Nations. I mean, they say we follow the United Nations 17 sustainability, what do they
Yeah.
call them? Sustainability development goals. Like,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
have the whole United Nations symbol on their website and all of this stuff. And they have a DEI page on, or they used to. I don't know if it's still there. They had a DEI page on their website. The dairy farming industry is more into ESG than anyone else. And
Which
I
I
grew up
think.
with dairies around me. I can
Mhm.
remember small dairies and guys that would run dairies around me. And there actually is one small dairy, not too far from my parents that I drive by every once in a while. They're still at it, but most of them, pretty much, that's the only one I can think of. All the rest of them are gone. But
Well, speaking of dairies and methane capture, did you see where I'd have to go back and find the article. I saw where one of the wives of one of those gentlemen that was killed there in northern Colorado at that dairy last year. We talked about it on the Lonesome Report, has filed a lawsuit, and there's not a lot of information on it other than she has just filed the lawsuit.
Like wrongful death or
Wrongful
oh,
death lawsuit. Yeah.
good for her.
So,
Um, Update on the methane school curriculum.
yeah.
Tri-State Livestock. What's that?
What's new on that, Jim?
Tri-State Livestock did the legwork. They kind of took what we did and they talked about it in an article, and then they interviewed our friend Brett Kenzie, but they also interviewed Travis Maddock, who is North Dakota producer, small business owner, who serves as the vice chair of the Federation of State Beef Councils and sits on the National Cattlemen's Beef Association Promotion Operating Committee.
Wow.
Which, there you go, right there.
That sounds very important.
That is a great, like, just representation of the beef checkoff. I said all that, and, most cattle producers probably have no idea, and I don't blame them one bit for not knowing what the Federation of State Beef Councils and National Cattlemen's Beef Promotion Operating Committee is. Like,
yeah,
because the checkoff is made to be so complicated so that no one can understand what it really is, and has all these different scenarios and nooks and crannies that you have to look down. You can't figure it out. But the Federation of State Beef Councils is the NCBA. It is a department of the NCBA. It is ran by the NCBA. And so, and then they also say NCBA's Beef Promotion Operating Committee. So the Beef Promotion Operating Committee, that apparently is the operating committee. That is an NCBA committee, but the operating committee is also the Checkoff Beef Board. They have an operating committee. Okay, so this is a group of 10 individuals who work with 10 Cattlemen's Beef Board members. Okay, so he's on the operating committee. He's on the National Cattlemen's Beef Association.
That's the NCBA. Yes.
Right. So the NCBA gets to nominate. They just put in there 10 people that they want in there. And the other 10 people come from the Cattlemen's Beef Board, which are vast majority of them are also NCBA members. So the NCBA has complete control over it. And even if they didn't have complete control over it, and the Checkoff Beef Board wanted to put in 10 people that weren't
they have influence.
NCBA members, NCBA still has 50% of the vote of the, and so those 20 people are the ones who control the entire checkoff.
The influence. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And Travis Maddock, I just check into who he is. He's a PhD and the founder and owner of Dakota Global Consulting, LLC.
Oh, okay.
Right. Well, he has experience in livestock production and food and feed manufacturing and advises companies both in the U.S. and abroad. He preventative controls for both human and animal food. So, right, he owns some sort of company.
Okay, so is he a rancher or not?
Well, it says beyond consulting, he remains connected with production agriculture as planning and marketing partner for Angle M Cattle Company. Sounds like he's still involved in his family's cattle operation.
When I get my big job, I'm going to say the same thing.
Yeah, just like me, right? Like I'm not that.
I guess what your whole
I'm not
point
part of a global consulting firm.
Yeah,
exactly. But
you're part of a global. Yeah. Anyway, I guess what you're telling us is that Brett Kenzie ain't going to be nominated to be on that
right
Cattlemen's Beef Board,
right? But what he does say, this whole thing just refreshed on me. What he does say about he is kind of the representative of the checkoff here, and what he says about the methane curriculum that we talked about that teaches children that cattle are bad for the environment and how to teach farmers and ranchers that their cattle are bad for the environment and how they can reduce the methane coming out of their cattle. That's a school program that is funded by the checkoff. He says, yeah, we stand behind the project. Of course we do. It's a large project that provides tremendous value to kids that have never seen a cow. They have never seen a pig. That's a direct quote from him in the article.
I would love to know what that tremendous value is. What is the exact value that he's talking about?
Yeah.
the
I mean,
only
it
value
teaches
they're
kids
getting.
that
Yeah,
cattle are bad for the environment and
exactly.
how
That's the
ranchers need to
value.
change their ways.
Oh my gosh.
But he
You can't
also
make
said
this stuff up.
there's two sentences right together that are cut pretty wild. He says, um, although the law, okay, so this isn't a direct quote, but it says Maddox said that although the law prohibits the beef checkoff from influencing policy, which is the beef, this is a sidebar here. Beef Act and Order says
Right.
you can't be used for lobbying, right? Which would be
Right.
influencing policy.
Right.
Now back to the article. Research and data from beef checkoff research can be used by policy influencing organizations to educate policymakers, right? He
Huh?
pretty much says it's against the law for the beef checkoff to lobby, but we can use the research and organizations and educate policymakers. Like
To
that is, he
influence.
describes lobbying. He
Yeah.
says we can't lobby, but we can, but here's how we're lobbying,
We
right?
can't lobby, but we can influence lobby and
Yeah, we
policymakers.
can influence policymakers. Yeah, right. So what exactly is lobbying?
Ho
I
hum.
mean,
That
it's
was a very confusing quote there, bro.
that's not a quote. It's from the article. But it's if you break it down, what he is saying is,
Yeah, well,
and
tell
then
us his
there are
quote.
quotes that support it from him, but he kind of goes around it all goes back to this beef industry long range plan, which this thing
Wait a
is
minute. Is
developed by
that
the, what's
is
that?
that USDA's long range plan or is
No,
that
it's NCBA's,
NCBA's? Okay,
but it's
NCBA.
the checkoff. It's the checkoff that NCBA creates.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And it's yeah, so it's the Checkoff long range plan. But this is given to every, I was told this is given to every elected representative in DC. And they
Wow.
have it in their office and they refer to it. It's right now on their website, it's like a one-page deal. But I've heard it used to be like a whole book of cattle industry policy. And, anytime cattle industry issues came up, they were referred to this long range plan that they had to go to, and this would have all the details about how country of origin labels are bad, and right, and EIDs and cattle traceability is good, and right, um, and so, but now I think they know that people are able to look at it and look it up, and so there's very little stuff about it online. But yeah, it's just ridiculous. I mean, the main thing to take away from it, it's a article. Brett does a great job
Mm-hmm.
talking about how, you know, uh, how cattle industry is accused of doing these things, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
he makes this analogy of the cattle industry is accused of destroying the environment. And it's his analogy. I mean, he put it better, but it's almost like if somebody puts you on stage and says, I can't remember what it was, but it was something about beating your wife. Like, prove to us that you're not beating your wife or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, I think
I'll
that
put a link to the article and then
yeah, it was a long, good article, very well written as always. But I think, that's a good segue into what we talked about in Oklahoma City last week, and you just referred to it and brought it to my mind was the EID issue, and what the Canadians are going through on that deal. The Canadian government wanted to implement a full mandatory EID traceability system. And on January 10th, the day that we were in Oklahoma City, they put a stop to it because of the backlash from Canadian producers. Because it did, I think they had kind of convinced the Canadian producers that they needed the EID system, but they went a step too far when they come out with the program that said, the minute that calf's born, the minute he dies, we want to know everything, where you put him, when you transported, is a third party audits of where you transported to. We need the license plate numbers. We need the times, the dates. I mean, it was so specific. And the Canadian cattle people have said, this ain't what we want. Of course, there is that sector in the cattle industry up there that are all behind it. But I think the grassroots producers are kind of throwing a fit. So I got to dig into that pretty deeply, pretty quickly, and see where we're all at. So all of our Canadian friends, which we do have a lot of Canadian friends listening, I hear from them a lot. We want to know on an update on that. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, and it goes. I mean, it's pretty much. I told you so. Right? Everything we've said about EIDs, we can say, "I told you so." This is the road you're going down. They're
And
not just telling you have to have EIDs just because they look cute in your cow's ear. They want a button that holds a ton of information so that they can require you to input a ton of information, all the information that they can get their hands on, and
we
then they
can
want
wave a
cattle trace
wand.
to hold it, which
Yeah.
I don't know if there was a question and answer section of the Oklahoma deal that
Hmm.
I didn't post, and I don't think I talked about this, but the CEO or the chairman of the board of Cattle Trace was Mark Gardner, who is the chairman of the board of U.S. Premium Beef, who is a major. They used to be the majority shareholder of National Beef Packing, the fourth largest beef packing corporation in the country. Now they own 15%, so they're a major shareholder of the the fourth largest beef packing corporation in the country, and they're the chairman of the board. Once that's where NCBA wants all of your.
Well, I think we don't need to make it that complicated, right? I mean,
Well, I mean,
in
it's
2011, the committee chair at NCBA's traceability committee says, and I quote, "We can wave a wand over your ranch and tell you how many cattle you have." And that's as simple as it needs to be, right? I mean, just get down to the nut cutting. Nobody needs to know how many cattle you have. It's nobody's business. But go to the Canadians, go to the European Union, go to Sri Lanka, all those places, and you'll see what the EID issue brings up. And it brings up a whole host of attack on private property. And I can't speak for any other country in the world, but we know that I can speak for the Constitution of the United States in that private property is the most important aspect of our liberty and freedom.
all right. We're bringing in our youth correspondent, Sage Mundorf, to give us an update. Remember, we used to do Brooke Rollins' update when she first got in there, and we'd do that every week. Brooke Rollins' update, whole milk. I don't know. You explain it. What's going on with the milk?
We're drinking whole milk again.
Hey,
Again?
hey, that's awesome.
She said it. We do. Yeah. Anyway, what's going on with it?
Well, they're putting whole milk in schools. This is the first time in I don't remember the exact date, but
So there you go, you
while.
dairy crybabies. We're getting more milk in school. That's how we should decrease the oversupply of milk. Get people drinking more.
I have a question for Sage.
Yeah.
With President Trump's executive order, and we're getting whole milk back into the schools, what did we have if we didn't have whole milk? What were we drinking?
Like 2% milk,
Okay.
low fat milk, stuff like that.
Okay.
Do you have
Okay.
choices?
Excellent.
So at school there's a choice of milks, which is skim milk or 2%,
And chocolate.
and chocolate. Which one
That
will you
was
pick?
Chocolate.
Is the whole milk gonna be chocolate? Are you gonna have chocolate whole milk?
I have no idea.
It's the next thing to campaign for, dairy people. Quit begging for buyouts and
Easy.
get that whole milk. Get them chocolate cows milking. And then they had like a campaign. Like the milk industry had the milk mustache, one of the biggest, most successful ad campaigns, but then the USDA was doing it. Right? Didn't they have celebrities?
Yeah. Riley Gaines.
Who else?
Was it?
Brooke Rollins.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Brooke
Trump.
Rollins,
They had Trump.
Trump.
He was drinking
Yeah.
milk there in the
Robert Kennedy.
I think it's fantastic. Now, if we can get local and regionally processed beef into all of our schools, would that not be awesome?
Well, she actually started talking about that.
Yeah, she's
Really?
trying.
Talked about it before, yeah.
Oh, come on, Shad. You didn't read the beef industry fortification.
I read it, but I want to know
Whatever.
how far we're going with it.
She
Because
wants local raised beef in schools.
absolutely.
Nebraska, I think, had a plan like that, or South Dakota.
Well,
And they
from
were
what I
doing it.
understand is because I have pushed for that locally a lot, and we are actually doing it in my hometown in Colorado, which I love. And of course, they're doing it all across the nation too. But like in my little community here in Texas, I guess that they have a conflict. Many schools have a conflict with the people who have contracts to provide these lunch programs, right? Because it's not the school providing the lunch programs anymore. It's an outside entity or a third party. And so my kid, who all we eat, we don't eat any chicken at our house. It's all beef because that's what we have. And he loves hamburgers. And so he goes to school and he won't eat a hamburger at school. He comes home and he says, Dad, why are our hamburgers at school look like waffles? You can't chew them. And he's right. They do. Cause I was looking at him. I'm like, okay, we got to do something about this. So we're going to work on that. I've already approached some of the school board members about that. And we're going to try to change that. Right. But I do applaud him for going after that.
Well, what do your hamburgers taste like?
Plastic. I actually quit eating school lunches because I would get sick every day. And I would hate, like, I would have to just really watch what I eat, and I cut out school lunches completely, and I felt way better.
Wow. Wow.
She's inherited her
So
father.
I don't
Yeah.
eat any school lunch barely
Yeah,
ever.
she packs her lunch every day.
That's okay.
You bet you're gonna start packing whole milk? Do you get milk though?
No.
Well, we get billed something. I get an email that we owe lunch money. What's that about?
Sometimes I get donuts on Friday.
Donuts.
And peanut butter bars. I love school lunch peanut butter bars.
Oh. All right. What else is happening in the youth movement? Youth Ag FFA?
Give us an FFA update.
Yeah, what's going on in this FFA?
I mean, like with me or
Yeah.
I'm working on my competition parliamentary procedure.
All right. You got
She's
a
in
little
that.
Parley Pro team there going on.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So, all right. Well,
That's about it.
Well, she's a woman of many words, I'll tell you that.
yeah, she likes coming on here. So we're
I like her.
celebrating or observing Martin Luther. Do you celebrate Martin Luther King Day or observe it? I don't
We
know. She's home
observe
from
it.
school.
Well, Sage, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a project, an issue that you have to work on and then give us a report on. So
What's that?
Okay.
every once in a while, I'm just saying.
Oh,
So
right. That's what I
so
told her. I was like, you
your
want to come
next
on and talk?
issue, your next issue is we want a national FFA update on whether they have moved the charter over to USDA or not. And we'll dig into that.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you to Missouri Cattlemen or Independent
She
Cattlemen.
rolls. She
Yeah,
rolls.
That was
out.
slick. That was slick. Independent Cattlemen of Missouri.
Thank you.
For today's go to independentcattlemenofmissouri.org. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed. I'm kind of behind on orders.
No.
So thank you for everyone who's been patient. But if you do subscribe, go to lonesomelands.com, click on support, and you can find ways to support what we're doing here and help us out. And if you do, we will send you one of these slick deals with your name and your phone number on the back. There's a couple people I also need to email about phone numbers because apparently you can fill the whole thing out and not put your phone number in.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, because of people like Independent Cattlemen of Missouri, Oklahoma Independent Stock Growers Association, all of these different people who have supported the podcast and advertised, I realized that I've heard this before, that there's a ton of ads on YouTube. And I have went through on the last two, hopefully you've noticed that I have decreased that by half. I've cut half of the ads out. I didn't know I could even do it, and I've kind of figured out how to get in there. And so if we can keep that going, I can hopefully make the program better by not having so many YouTube ads run.
Yeah.
So,
and Jim, I just want to say thanks to all of our supporters. We're getting a lot of feedback. It's great, and we appreciate it. So
I will say this too, Mr.
Uh-oh.
Sullivan. So Shad says we're getting our ass kicked in all these different ways. These other people are doing better, more views, whatever. And so I thought, well, okay, here's what we do for everyone who's subscribed and everyone who's advertised. And I made a little list, and you could add to it. We have talked about like this dairy buyout deal. Nobody would know about that if we hadn't talked about that. We broke the methane checkoff story, right? Thanks to one of our advertisers who sent me, I think I probably would have come across that link anyway, but Circle 5 Cattle School sent me the methane link on Facebook, and I went down the rabbit hole and broke that whole story. Last week at Oklahoma, down in Oklahoma, we talked about how the NCBA nobody's brought this up. NCBA doesn't talk about the food pyramid. The checkoff isn't talking
Yeah,
about the food
nobody's
pyramid.
talked about it.
They also aren't talking about this USDA's beef fortification, their plan to fortify the cattle industry.
Those are three issues that the most important issues, and they have not talked about them yet. And
right.
USDA needs to understand that, because it's not just USDA, but the Trump administration needs to understand that, because it is the double down against the America First policy that they're doing that on.
Right. And if it wasn't for us, they wouldn't know about how the border would be opening gradually, right? Like we sat down and got down into the nuts and bolts of that deal, and
Secretary Rollins,
right? How the Common Ground group will refuse to show up to the White House.
Yeah.
We kind of broke that story and got into the details on that. I'm sure I'm probably missing some other stuff.
Well,
the whole climate thing, nobody, all big ag and mainstream media is all in on this climate and methane deal.
Absolutely.
And so climate smart commodity thing, I broke that on 2 years ago.
Almost 3 years ago now.
Right. And when we do these things, there are a lot of people, and I'm not even mad at them, because we want these, the end goal is to get these issues out.
Yeah.
And get people talking about them. And then, there's these influencer type people, they hear this kind of news and then they go on their channel and they talk about it themselves. And then Shad's like, oh, these guys are getting all the views, and it's kind of like, well, we're doing what we can do. We don't have somebody around that can clip these podcasts up, but I'm going to work. This year we're going to do a lot more stuff. We've already done, we've made our trip to Oklahoma.
Well, I was just, I get pretty panicky, because I'm, number one, I love our industry, and I love the message that me and you have been bringing, along with a lot of other great people like the Cavalry Group and Andrea and Brett and all these people. These are great messages that we have gotten people to start thinking about, right? And how they are these messages are influencing everything, every aspect of their life. So I get really nervous, and I'm like, okay, as an old guy, we got to keep up. And these young kids are so smart. And the key is just to, I've been preaching this to a lot of people: go quietly on, do your deal and go quietly on, sit back, relax, and let the Lord lead the way, because we have a different perspective because of our age, or at least I do, into these issues. And that perspective needs to be brought, and we are making headway. We got a lot of contacts with great people, and we're going to continue to do what we're going to do, but we're going to increase. And it's hard to ranch and be a rancher and help all these outside people, and build corrals for your 4-H animals and do all these things at the same time. But we're going to do it if we have to do it at midnight, bro.
Yeah. We had some good weather in January, so I didn't get as much done last week as I wanted to, but I'm going to try and get caught back up this week, because we have today, I think it's about 5 degrees out. And
jeez.
Yeah, it was 5 earlier when I checked. It was 1 when I got up this morning. And then I called to Shad, and he goes, it's cold here today. It's like 42.
Yeah, and it is. You got to have 2 coats. But listen, the fallout is coming, because I think Friday or Saturday we are supposed to have in North Texas a high of 17 degrees. Now that will slow that New World screwworm down.
Let's quit talking about that.
I'm just saying.
All right. See you next week, everybody. Thank you is what
Adios,
I'm trying
friends.
to say there.
Me too. Thank you.